new season is dawning for Africa as brokenness and destitution give way to a robust and vibrant future. At the Inspire 2020 E-Conference, great minds unite to ready Africa to steward her own destiny. From the 10th to the 15th of August, we are talking Africa beyond the horizon, because the future is African.
Thank you for joining us once more. I'm sure you're in for a big tweet tonight. Our speakers are already in the house and they are roaring to go and ready for us. I'm sure you had a great day yesterday. If you had a great day, just type yes on that chat room. You just want to see some yes. You had a great day. It's good to see. Good to see that. Just a recap of yesterday, a brief recap of yesterday. We had a fantastic day. I think our father, Bishop J.B. Masinde, started by encouraging us to at least pick one or two things that we're going to implement. And I would like you to type those two things, one or two things that you're going to implement already from day one. If you have gotten something that you want to explore more, please do type that out, share with your friends. We are live on Facebook. If you on Facebook, you're welcome. Our Facebook viewers, you're more than welcome to the conference. Please keep the chat room active. We will continue to chat on our chat room, and will allow you to ask some questions, obviously, through our Q&A session as well. So do keep the questions coming, keep the comments coming. We appreciate your comments, sharing your thoughts. This is a think tank, and we encourage you to share your thought as much as you can throughout the session. Just in terms of yesterday, just to give you a quick recap, some of the key comments that came through for me was, Africa is looking for individuals who have skills to solve problems. And because Africa is full of problems, I think we're in the right place. We are in the right place to solve problems. The other thing that came out very strongly for me was blackness shouldn't be associated with drugs, but should be associated with wealth creation. And I'm saying yes to that. And if you believe that, just say yes to that. You can say yes many times. The other thing that came out yesterday very strongly is, if you want to go far, you must come with many. If you have a long vision, you must have a number of people that you carry with. Africa will not be transformed by fighting. That came out from Paul, but through vision, wisdom, and understanding. The other thing that Paul did say to us was, we are a Solomon generation. Our fathers fought for independence. We're enjoying that independence now, but it's up to us to rebuild Africa like Solomon rebuilt the temple. The number of nice facts that came through yesterday, and I'm sure today will even be much more. The other emphasis that Stephen put was, we need mentorship and coaching for Africa to expand. As one of the other key points that he made, the continent, Africa is a continent full of promise, and those promises, is up to us to explore those opportunities that are presented to us. I'm sure today is going to be another great day. We will not take much of your time. We'll also run some polls throughout the session. We'll have one or two polls just before the speakers come on. So we want you to participate in those polls, respond to those questions, just to give the speakers your view and feel of what you expect. Welcome once again. At this point, I'll welcome Rachel to introduce our speaker. We do apologize for went over yesterday, so today we'll try our best to keep time. but do keep the questions coming and let's keep it interactive. Rachel, you're welcome to take us to our next session. More than welcome, Rachel.
Thank you very much, Emmanuel, for that warm welcome and for the recap from yesterday's session. Indeed, it was a great fast session. Thank you to everyone that managed to tune in and to join the call. If you are joining us for the first time, would love to recognize you. So please type in the comment section if you're joining us for the first time and where you are joining in from, so we can give you a warm welcome. And of course, remember to tell a friend so they can to join this amazing conversation on Africa Beyond the Horizon, which is our theme for 2020. Now, our speaker is already in the house, but before I introduce him, Joan Nkiriki from Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, we see you, we welcome you. Thank you for joining in. And of course, just to let you know that Uganda is home to Inspire, but we do welcome, everyone or participants from all over the world and from all over Africa. Eunice from Kenya, Nairobi, we see you as well. Thank you for joining in. And thank you for being part of this amazing conversation. So without wasting much time, we want to get into our discussion for today. Much later on, we'll be talking on how you can disrupt yourself beyond the horizon. Now, like Emma has put it, the main purpose of this conference is to stir in us something that gets us to realize Africa's potential. And I guess what your place is and what your role is in all of this. So we want to be able to do that with the conversations that we're having on this call and in this conference, with the speakers that are coming to address us, and of course with the interactions we'll be having with each other. So before we get into that, we are going to hear from a very special guest who is known to me personally and professionally, and he's going to be talking to us about understanding the fourth revolution, what it is, and how Africa can ready itself, or find out if we are actually ready to take advantage of the fourth industrial revolution. If you don't know what the first, second, and third is, well, I guess you're in the right place. And so without further ado, let me introduce our speaker, our very first speaker. His name is Michael Niyitegeka. He's a program director refractory at Clark International University. He's also the ICDL Africa country manager for Uganda, passionate about practices, leadership development, business technology strategy, and business advisory services. He also possesses 19 years of working experience in both the private and public sectors. He worked with Makerere University for 12 years in varied capacities as a researcher, trainer, and head of corporate relations. He is an adjunct lecturer with the Isami Business School, chair of the board of advisors at ISEC Uganda, also board member Uganda Youth Forum, and director Transformation Business Network Uganda. He was a member of the ICT Technical Working Group of the Presidential Investor Roundtable. He's a member of the advisory group for the government of Uganda on the fourth industrial revolution technologies. And he's also a member of several technology innovation review panels, both locally and internationally. I think he's more than qualified to be speaking to us on this subject, a Rotarian, and he's also passionate about mentoring the next generation of technology business leaders. Please join me in welcoming Michael Niyitegeka. Welcome, Michael, over to you.
Thank you, Rachel, and Emmanuel, and the entire team that is organizing the Inspire conference. What an honor for me to be part of the speaking panel, and specifically today when I'm sharing on a topic that I think many of us are still going through a process of discovering what it is all about and what is going to happen with it. And so without wasting a lot of our time and your time, those that are joining as guests, I will start off my presentation. I can see we have a poll running, and okay, just hold on. Yeah, so I was asked to speak about the fourth industrial revolution. And the question was, is Africa ready to take advantage? And in order for me to speak about this, I felt that it is important for me to be able to share and give context to this whole conversation around the fourth industrial revolution. And whether we are ready is something that we will judge ourselves. Now, context is critical for us to understand whether Africa is ready or not. And for me to start off this conversation is really to get to help us understand what the fourth industrial revolution, where we are starting from, and what that essentially means for us. So we start, and I think Rachel said, if you're not aware of the first, second, and third, I really, in a nutshell, talk about the first, second, and third. And I'm pretty sure those of you who have either attended sessions or been part of conferences, you've had the first one was where the steam engine, where we got stuff moving. The second industrial revolution was the assembly line, where we're getting things manufactured in scale or on scale. And the third was the computing, where internet and the whole nuclear energy became a big thing. We are now part of the fourth industrial revolution, and it is really comprised of three major blocks. The first part is where we talk about digitization, and we're talking about integration of value chains. And here we're looking at cloud computing, mobile devices, and Internet of Things. Then we talk about the digital business models and customer access. And in this case, we're looking at location detection. We're looking at, location detection technologies, and I'm sure you've seen what is happening with tools like Google Maps that are able to give you a summary of where you were, give you a monthly update of where you were. Sometimes sounds quite scary when you receive your monthly report. And that tends to also demonstrate to you how technology has become an integral part of what we are doing. The other component is what we call advanced human-machine interfaces. And that has become a big thing, how human beings are beginning to interact with the machines, and machines have a way of interacting with them. The other component in this space is the whole the aspect around authentication and fraud detection, and that really talks about the aspect of, okay, I call it the second, but we can see it as number 3. The second one, the digitization of products and service offerings. Here we're really looking at how bits and pieces are being enabled to carry digital capability. And so as we go through this conversation this evening, for me, the most critical aspect is for us to appreciate that the industrial revolution, the fourth industrial revolution, is largely defined by devices, human beings, internet, and data. So those are becoming a critical component in how the fourth industrial revolution is playing about. Now, to get us moving is to look at the next aspect. And in order for us to appreciate the next aspect is to look at, what does digital look like in Africa? What does digital look like in Africa? Now, you will appreciate that digital in Africa is changing. Now, if you look at the last, as of Jan 2020, the number of mobile connections on our continent is about 1.08 billion. The number of internet users is equally becoming is growing by the day. So if you look at the number of internet users, you're looking at about 453 million. And then the active social media users is 217 million. Now, sometimes when you look at these numbers, you would expect the internet users to connect with the active social media users. The difference is that a number of people in Africa, connectivity is a big challenge. And so we access internet through multiple devices. And so you'll find on MyCo, there could be more than one device. And because the way the internet is structured, that every connection is an internet address and is a unique address. So you have an inflated number of internet users. It does not necessarily mean that those are human beings. So which means we still have some work to do in that space. So what have we seen in the last, if you look at the numbers, if you look at it from the angle of the annual change in digital use in Africa, everything seems to be going up. Yes, the population has gone up. Your mobile connections have gone up. You have a 5% increase in mobile penetration. Increase, I mean, in terms of mobile connections. You also have the number of internet users going up by 10%. So more Africans are getting connected and going to the internet. And then social media users have gone up by 12%. And that is a very good thing for us, because if you're going to be part of the digital economy, then we need to get more people accessing digital and using digital. Now, what we know is also in terms of investment is that on the African continent, we're beginning to see a lot of inflow of capital investing in tech startups on the African continent. In the last 1 year, the investment into tech startups as of end of 2019, Africa was able to attract $491 million. And this went up by 47%. The startups receiving investment went up by 50%. But also the number of investors went up by 61%. So on the bigger picture of the whole scheme is that the tech in Africa is beginning to attract players who are willing to put in their dollars because it makes business sense. Now, the sectors that are growing are largely 6. You have the fintech space, you have the logistics space. Fintech is number 1, but logistics, transport, e-commerce, agri-tech, and e-health are tagging along. Actually, in the report that was done by Disrupt Africa, it says that fintech for the first time saw the investment inflow into the fintech industry going down, and logistics and transport started picking up in terms of ability to attract investment. So what is the status of the 4th Industrial Revolution initiatives in Africa? It is largely, we're seeing a lot of investment or a lot of work going on in what you call Internet of Things and big data. So this is where you have most of the applications that are being built or technologies that are using 4th Industrial Revolution. Then we're also seeing significant interest that is picking up in what you call the additive manufacturing. This is where you begin to add computing power on your manufacturing resources. Artificial intelligence is picking up, and companies like Google have set up on the African continent in Ghana, and they're beginning to attract local talent. Then the use of drone technologies, I'm sure you know the cases in Rwanda, where they are using drones to do blood supplies, but also a couple of other things, and blockchain in agriculture and supply chain management. All these are picking up. Now, the African Development Bank report study, and when you get the presentation, you'll see the link. It does state that of the 6,500 tech startups in Africa as of 2019, 712 were in the 4th Industrial Revolution related development, which is a good thing. By implication, it means that people are beginning to build stuff that is driven by the 4th Industrial Revolution technologies. Now, so are we ready? Is a question that I think I was asked to answer. And for me, I'll answer it in two parts. First is we need to understand that the fourth industrial revolution is largely driven by data and the internet. We are saying most of the technologies that are emerging that are fourth industrial revolution related are fueled by the power of data. And so if your data is up to scratch, and you will definitely begin to leverage the benefits out of the fourth industrial revolution technologies. Number two, we can't run away from internet as a driver, internet as an enabler. And so we need to think about these aspects, these two aspects. The other things do emerge. I mean, if you talk about machine learning, if you talk about artificial intelligence, if you talk about data science, if we talk about the robotics, which really define what the fourth industrial revolution technologies are all about, you will realize that the foundation of these technologies is nothing but data and internet. And so organizations that are investing in data and internet, or that are interested in making the fourth industrial revolution work for them, also quickly realize that it is important for them to invest significantly in the whole, the two aspects. The other aspects really will come along as we have this conversation. So what are we doing to make this work? Number one doesn't seem to be as exciting, but I think we are doing quite a lot of talking. We're talking about the fourth industrial revolution. Our leaders are talking about it, and everybody seems to be, there is a general feel that the fourth industrial revolution is going to change quite a lot of things. Of course, there's also a lot of fear of the unknown. What is going to change? And many people actually are not sure what is going to change. And for me, that can be quite scary, but also presents a number of challenges for us that understand the technology to begin to prepare people for that. The other aspect that is happening is that we're beginning to notice quite a number of governments investing in strategy development. I think the government of Kenya recently launched their 4IR strategy and roadmap, which I mean, a number of us are piggy-banking on. South Africa has done the same. In the north of Africa, we are seeing quite a lot of that. And Uganda, I mean, like they did say, we are part of the fourth industrial revolution technical working group or task force. And we should be completing our strategy for Uganda in the next couple of months. The general regulatory environment really is present, if you asked me. So if I look at it from the policy perspective, the regulation perspective, and the laws perspective, I think we're doing quite a lot. And for me, that seems to be good. But also the key thing is for us to appreciate that technology is changing very fast, and therefore you cannot have all the laws covering your bases. Then the investment in infrastructure is ongoing. I mean, if you look at what is happening in Uganda and the other parts of the economies or on the African continent, there is quite a lot that is happening in terms of investment in infrastructure. In terms of the national broadband infrastructure, as well as the how can I put it, the government infrastructure that should enable some of these technologies to work. But it is still costly. It is still costly to bring it down to a point where it is to a point where it is cheap enough for companies to invest in and different initiatives to be able to capitalize and make it work. The other thing is that the general academic training is also very good. General academic, if I could put it that way. So people are being trained at graduate level, but it is still largely academic and it is not skill oriented. And therefore there are massive gaps when it comes to, is industry ready for for taking on. And what we know for a fact is that there is a huge disparity between what is being taught at universities and what the industry is looking for. So that matching up needs to happen. The other aspect is that what do we need to invest in? And then we can take advantage of the fourth industrial revolution. Number one is we must organize our data. There is a lot that is hidden in our data. Government institutions, private sector, they're not talking to each other. So you go to one government ministry, you'll find one piece of data. For you to be able to access it from another ministry, you typically have to move your physical file to make it work. And I think for me, that speaks into the silos that are within our structures, that are within our businesses. If you're going to leverage, the fourth industrial revolution really thrives on huge data sets, if I could put it that way. Bringing those data sets together and building on top of that tools like artificial intelligence or blockchain or whatever technology you're talking about, it is important that we begin to see governments in Africa or even the private sector. Private sector is really running ahead of the game, but governments need to. Now, the reason why I'm talking about government is government still remains one of the #1 spenders in terms of private sector spend in any part of the African continent, because the private sector is emerging. Number two is that we must have a digital transformation agenda. The things that we are talking about can only happen if we have an agenda. And that agenda must be aligned to national priorities. So you cannot look at ICT as just a one block. You need to look at it as an enabler across functions, across different entities. That way, we will leverage the power of data. We will leverage the power of the fourth industrial revolution. And that agenda must speak into our education. That agenda must speak into our research and development. That agenda must also be able to guide the investments that are going to happen on the African continent. The third one is digital skills as a bare minimum for citizens. I mean, just see what has happened during the COVID experience, where we have been forced to learn how to use certain tools in order to access either money or even to access goods and services. But digital skills must be a minimum. We must be able to educate people to have a level of comfort to use technology. Number four is what I call invest in research and development. There is no way we are going to make 4IR work for us if we are not investing in research and development. Now, if we invest in research and development, then we must be able to commercialize the research and development products and services. I always give an example. Makerere, about 10 years ago, was able to come up with the technology that you could be able to check the presence of malaria parasites without a human being, using a phone as the phone camera, using artificial intelligence to be able to tell whether the malaria blood sample has the parasites or not. But that technology has been in the lab for the last 10 years or so, simply because to move it from the lab to commercialization requires a lot of investment. So we have a lot of stuff that is happening, but it is largely for academic purposes. It does not translate into the commercial component. And so we must be able to translate our R&D stuff into commercial stuff. The other last one that I share is invest in higher level skilling, technical competence driven and not just academic ability. Our education system is largely based on academic ability. You're able to get a first class and not a second or technical competence. So the emphasis is not competence. The emphasis is that you're able to pass an exam. And I'm involved in teaching, and students tell you their principle is cram, pass, forget. Now that tells you quite a lot about what we look out for in education. And for me, that has to change. We need to find a way of making our education system competence driven. The final one is that beyond the talking, I share our own experience. I'm involved in an initiative called Refactory. And what we're really doing is we're trying to answer the challenge of how do we equip young people with skills that are needed with industry, that are needed within the industry. And in the last couple of months, what we've been able to observe is that the industry is quite interested in making technology, creating opportunities for our young people, only if they feel there is value for them, they will make the investment. Beyond that, they are not interested. I mean, they have been talking to universities for long and universities are not responding as they anticipated. So it is critical that we begin to think about that. Now, what we've observed in the last 6 or 7 months, what we've been able to observe is that actually it is possible. We have seen about 90% or 92% of people that go through our program be able to find employment in Uganda and out of Uganda, which is remarkable. We've taken our program virtual, and because we've taken it virtual, we are seeing more Ugandans applying, but also we are saying, why can't we open it up? And I hope through this Inspire conference, we can get a couple of other partners coming to join us and making this real. In January 2021, our plan is to open up the first data science school that is vocational based as opposed to just an academic degree program. And so I would like to end here and thank you very much for allowing me to speak to you. But I hope I've also been able to do justice to time. And yeah, over to you, Rachel. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Michael, for that wonderful presentation. Data Science School coming up next year. I think that's good news, proactiveness on our part. Thank you also for your comments and your questions. Remember, if you have a question, feel free to put it in the chat. A comment or something that you'd like for Michael to expound on. There's a comment slash question in the chat section from Patience Musime, who is asking, why is free internet in Uganda such a bridge too far? The recent infrastructure of hotspot in Kampala within limited radius is next to zero. And she asks, what is holding Ugandans back? Michael, if you would shed some light on that, that would be great.
Yeah, so first of all, really without sounding political, yeah, it's a tight question. So this is how typically the free internet project is supposed to be working. So my understanding was that it's supposed to be available over the weekend as well as night. Now, the way the project is structured is that it's really leveraging free internet. It's leveraging internet of government, what is called government procured internet. So if you're in the central business district, where most of the government services are, or where most of the government entities are, then you find that at night, when this internet is made available, we have moved out of town. So if you find a hotspot somewhere in Ntinda, you're quite off the hotspot as it was supposed to be, hotspot, because the internet spot is actually further off Ntinda. Or now, for those who are not in Uganda, it may be difficult for you to connect. But that's the challenge with that particular technology. Now, as opposed to, let's say, what happened in Rwanda, where they made the internet service providers be able to make a certain capacity available onto public infrastructure. So if you're in a bus, you'll probably access free internet. If you're within a given location or CBD, you'll access free internet. So the essence that there was, I think, on my own assessment is that there was a rush to that decision to make internet free without really paying attention to the infrastructure requirements that needed to be in place. And that will take some time. Let's be very honest with ourselves for free internet to be accessible to us. Rachel, you will agree with me, and those that are in Uganda, just because we've had a lockdown, you've seen how it has become extremely difficult for people who are accessing internet at home. The telecom service providers had no plan at all for home-based internet. If it was there, it was really scattered. The few companies that had a plan for home internet have been able to rip in big out of the numbers that people are looking for in terms of connecting to the internet to be able to work from home. So it is important that in terms of access, it is made as accessible as possible. And that should be the Uganda Communications Commissions in terms of the regulation should be able to, how can I put it? Should be able to use it as one of the benchmarks when they're assessing the performance of the telecom service providers. So I would say, if you live within the CBD, you probably will enjoy the internet, the free internet. But if you're further off, even a kilometer, yeah, it will remain a mystery.
Oh, unfortunately. Thank you, Michael. A couple of more questions. Nkosano Moyo is asking. He says, we talk about 4IR in Africa. Are we looking at it at a national or continental level? We need to be more explicit in the context of both analysis and strategic planning for the fourth industrial revolution. And he asks, what governance structures are in place, if any, to achieve this at a continental level?
Yeah, so there have been attempts. You remember what I said, what are we doing? We are talking. The African Union, I think on their website, they do have a study on what needs to be done for Africa to be part of the fourth industrial revolution. I think I've also seen a couple of other, how can I put it? A couple of other documents or papers that have been published that are really talking about the fourth industrial revolution. So at an African continent level, there is a conversation that is happening, but the translation from conversation to implementation is what is taking, quite some time. What I would say is that it is important that at an African continent level, yes, we begin to talk about how this is going to impact us, because just by having Kenya, Rwanda, and Uganda agree to a trade protocol where you have cross-border telecom rates harmonized, has seen the number of traffic, the traffic of calls going up. Also, even enabling things like mobile money transactions has gone up. And so that there is power in working together. But our leaders need to understand. Our leaders need to invest time in making sure that they understand how these technologies work and how they will leverage on the power of trade as well as commerce. Now, one thing that needs to change is that most of our leaders still see the internet as just a service. They don't see the internet as a marketplace. And when that changes, then they're going to also begin to invest, like they're investing in power, like they're investing in the road infrastructure. I always say internet is now a factor of production, like land, like water, like electricity. Internet is now a factor of production. Thank you, Rachel.
Right. Thank you, Michael. Please remember, if you are asking a question, to also share where you are joining in from. It would be lovely to hear and see which part of the world you are joining the call from. Another question for you, Michael. Why isn't research market driven to ease commercialization? Victor Tumwine is asking.
Yeah, so number one, most of our research is really driven by donors. If you look at our research and development in per capita investment, we are, in many countries, it will be at less than 0.5% of the GDP. And that tells you quite a lot in terms of how we invest in research and development as economies or as countries. So for you to be able to invest in commercializing research, it means that you need to have a significant amount of money that you've set aside that is purely meant to enable that conversion from research to commercial. Now, the private sector in this part of the world is not significantly investing in research and development like it is in Europe and other parts of the world, where universities hold what you call research chairs. They host research chairs sponsored by companies like Microsoft, like the Bill and Melinda Gates Research Foundation. So that needs to be seen, and there is an opportunity for the tax authorities or the tax regime to create that investment, that if you invest in research and development, you can be able to recover that, or it is tax deductible when you're doing your annual returns. So there must be an investment incentive for private sector to invest in for the private sector to invest in research and development, which would then translate into the commercialization of research.
A number of questions for you, Michael. Let me just see if I can catch a few more. Gladys asks, there's a scare that there are dangers to health of the 5G. And she asks, can you throw some light on this?
Yeah, yes, of course. So technically, they are not dangers. Let's put it this way. The spectrum within which you are, the radiation that comes off, let's say the masks that are going to be used, is not harmful to human life. But let's face it, you will have skeptics. I know, for example, in Makerere, the academic staff rejected an installation of a mast on a building, even after the physicists had been able to come up with the research showing that that mast, the radiation that it emits is not harmful to human beings. Members of staff still went ahead and said that mast should be switched off. And so if you're in Makerere, the university, you will struggle to access certain networks. And it's purely because human beings say this is harmful to us. Now, there are tons of research publications that are there to demonstrate that research is not, I mean, the 5G is not in any way harmful to human life. But sometimes human beings don't even desire to dig deeper to understand what happens. What we know with 5G is that it's going to run at supersonic speed. From a technology perspective, is that what used to take you like a second will probably, or a minute, will probably now hit your phone like in milliseconds, if I could put it that way, because of that speed. And that's what they're trying to do. But you see, it's like the pharmaceutical industry. When you're making progress this side, there will be somebody who is coming up with a counter argument. And I think from technology and science, we haven't come across significant research that shows that 5G is extremely harmful to health, our health as human beings. I mean, you've heard of all conspiracy theories about 5G and coronavirus and all kinds of things. So sometimes I ask people, just read a little bit more. You'll begin to appreciate what is possible and what is not possible.
Yeah. We have a question here from Anthony. Seems to be a young person. He says, I am young, vibrant, and ready for the fourth industrial revolution, but my boss is triple my age and still conservative. How can I convince him about 4IR?
Why should he convince his boss? He needs to do it for himself. I think for me, that's a starting point. We give a lot of people permission to influence what we become. And so for me, if you believe it, Anthony, just begin the journey. Sooner than later, you'll find a place where you belong and they will appreciate you. I mean, my own story is if I had waited for my boss to give me approval, probably refactory would never have started. I had to leave the university to be able to start to begin my journey of what I believed in. So what I would say is Antoinette, don't wait on your boss. If you believe in it, begin the journey. Nature will conspire and it will bring around forces that will enable you to appreciate and do what you're very convinced is where we need to be. So yeah, that's it.
All right. A couple of comments around education, and I just wanted to highlight some of them, and then maybe you can speak to that.
Yeah.
David Butala says, it seems to me that the best way to make a change in culture today is to show a way of living and thinking that is contrary to the notion that immediate gratification is always the best choice, that whatever is quicker and faster should be done, that knowledge equals a great amount of information. And he says, we are preparing students for jobs not yet known. And he says, he continues to say that certainly curriculum has to be revisited and reevaluated to align with the realities. And there's just one other question on education that I wanted to highlight, and then you can, yes, coming in from Pade Musana. And he says, what's your prediction on the future of education in Uganda in view of the 4IR?
Not even just in view of the 4IR. I think for me, the truth is that education needs to be disrupted, and we need to disrupt it like very, 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 very fast. When we started Refactory, we got students from a number of these universities around here. And for me, what was extremely reassuring was that students who had done 4 years at some of these universities in software engineering came out to tell us that the things they had learned in 3 months was far greater than the stuff they learned in 4 years combined. And that just tells you how our education systems need to be totally disrupted. Now, let me just give an example. The Association of Computing Machinery, which is like the entity, like the go-to entity that talks about computing on a global scene, has came up with a framework, what they call the computing curricular framework. And in that framework, they came up with 5 areas that they call the computing disciplines. It's computer science, information systems, information technology, software engineering, and computer engineering. Now, from a global perspective, each of these 5 disciplines is an industry on its own in the US and Europe. Now, what have we done? We picked that curriculum, that curricular framework, and brought it into Africa. And I'll speak for Uganda, and implemented it as it is in the US. Now, you train somebody to become a computer engineer, but yet the industry here is not yet there. And so a computer engineering student is competing with a software engineering student, is competing with a computer scientist, is competing for an information technologist, and the market, because the market is not that big. The market is not that big. And so what we have done is that we've brought curricula that is feeding a certain industry structure, implemented it in our context. However, the context is quite different. And so at one time I attempted to design a curricula and called it Applied Computing Technology. And the National Curriculum and the National Council of Higher Education told me, but this does not comply with our computing curricular framework. Why? Because the National Council of Higher Education picked the same computing curricular framework from computer science in the US and Europe and implemented it here without looking at the structure of our industry. So education in our place needs to, first of all, take care of the context within which we're educating the people that we're educating. That's number one. But also look at the applicability of the things that we are teaching. Because if we don't align then we are miseducating. And people come out of a university and just cannot connect the pieces. The other thing that we have as a challenge in our education system is that the time it takes to turn around, it's like an elephant. Our education system is like an elephant. It knows that it has to change, but they will first go a kilometer to make a turning before they come back to change curricula at university, a program at university. That program must have run for a period of, let's say, 5 years. Before that, you cannot change curriculum. Now, if you're teaching technology, 5 years is a lifetime because it is changing extremely fast. So Rachel, and I think many of us who are on this call, it is important to begin, and I hope initiatives like Refactory can begin to have systemic impact on the way we teach and the way we are able, a way we are able to realign ourselves to make sure that education speaks to us. Technology is going to change the way education is being delivered. Just see what has happened with the COVID experience. University lecturers are struggling to find a way of how they can deliver their classes online. But yet, your infrastructure in university just doesn't meet the requirements or cannot sustain the requirements. So what is going to happen? People are going to find alternative education. And so it is important for us to pay attention to those dynamics, if I could put it that way.
All right. Question from Joanne Kiriki. She asks, how do we ensure equity remains a key focus as we embrace the fourth industrial revolution? Isn't there potential for unmanaged rapid transformation to widen divides, for example, between rural and the urban areas?
Equity is a delicate balance. I think on one panel I was asked, what should government do? I mean, as challenging the conversation. And I said, government is talking about, let's say in Uganda, in response to the COVID experience, government was saying they're going to give people radios. And I said, okay, let's look at functionality. If I gave this child a radio and the other one gave them a rugged tab, who has a better solution? And then people said, but not everybody accesses internet. I said, okay, let's look at delivery on radio. So there are many gaps if it comes to utility of a radio as a learning device as compared to a tab. So equity is never going to be solved at any one time. What we need is to contextualize our delivery, our support, our innovation, contextualize it. What works well for somebody who is in a city and has good access to internet? Because it is not possible that at any one time the entire country will be running on 5G. That is not possible. So if your drive is to make sure everybody is running on the same page, you'll probably not even make any step. So what we need is what I would call incremental innovation, but that is heavily contextualized. So what works well for somebody who's in a rural area from a technology perspective may not necessarily be the same that works well for somebody who is in a city, but they're all using technology. So that for me is critical. And that way you're able to take care of the equity aspect. I don't believe that everybody will have an opportunity to have a laptop, but I believe everybody can have an opportunity to use the internet.
All right, brilliant. Thank you, Mike.
I hope that helps you, Joanne. I know where you're coming from.
I hope so. I hope so. Blessed SGO is asking, he says, I agree with you on the need for data. Could you please provide guidance on how we can capture as much data as is needed for proper planning, both on national and local level?
Let's first begin with what we have. Rachel, you and I know for a fact that each of these government agencies collects tons of data that they hardly use. Yep. If you look at the way our agencies are working in government, you realize how they're totally disconnected. So you go to the National Identification Registration Authority, you provide a certain data set as an individual. That is going to be required. The same data set is likely to be required from you if you go to the Uganda Registration Services Bureau if you're starting up a company. Like we already have a lot of data to start from. Let's organize that. And as we organize that, then we're able to build structures that help us to work with what is already coming through. So my take is that it is important for us as governments to first look in our backyard and see what do we have, what can we learn from that, and then as we look at the future, begin to realize that there are a lot of things that are redundant that we can be able to align. So that's what I would say. Let's start with what we have, and as we work with what we have, then it is easier for us to begin looking at how do we collect what is not yet with us, if I could put it that way.
All right, I just wanted to ask one final question, and maybe Michael, after this, you can visit the chat room because there's a ton of questions that you can then respond to. An anonymous attendee here asking, at what stage of industrial evolution is the SSA region? Are we in the fourth, third, or second industrial revolution? As a region, do we have the robust backbone infrastructure capable of hosting the 4IR? If not, what should the current generation do to ensure that we are able to benefit from 4IR?
So I'll say we are consumers of 4IR. So as Sub-Saharan Africa, we are doing a great job in consumption. So if you're using Gmail and its related apps, you are using 4IR because that Gmail, the Google search is able to pick a lot of data. If you're typing your email, you have seen what we call predictive text because it has noticed you start your emails with how are you or good day, and it picks the name from the email address and plugs it there. It's like rocket science to some people. That's 4IR, if I could put it that way. So we are already consuming. I think the question that we need to be asking, what are we contributing to the industry? And like I said, that is really still in the nascent stages, and we're not doing a lot of investment in actively using. I know, for example, in Uganda, and I think in Nigeria, there is somebody who has built an Internet of Things tractor. So the way you do Uber for cars, he's done an Uber for tractors, if I could put it that way. So you can hail a tractor if you need a tractor to till your farm in Nigeria, and he's doing quite amazing stuff with that. So there are pockets of, and I think there's one in Kasese, which is in Uganda, which is connecting farmers to the markets. And so you have the entire value chain mapped out on blockchain. And you know, if you're in Europe, you can be able to trace back where this coffee started from before it got to your shelf in Europe. So there are bits and pieces. We are not yet doing mass investment into the 4IR related technologies. So we are in the fourth industrial revolution. Whether we are making money out of it is something else, but from a consumption, we are doing good, I guess. We just need to flip that up and make sure that we're able to make money out of it. But I really hope this has been helpful and it has helped us understand how we can be part of this.
Wow. Thank you so much, Michael. I do believe that you have set the pace for us in trying to understand the fourth industrial revolution. Of course, we can't exhaust it all, but just a little to whet our appetite and get us talking some more. Hopefully, we can action the things that we are talking about. There's lots of questions in the chat section. Please do visit the chat section and answer as many questions as you possibly can, and maybe respond to some comments as well. I do believe that we've all benefited from this, and if there's evidence in the chat room. All right, I'll hand over to Emmanuel to take us on for our next session. Thank you, Michael.
Thank you very much. Blessings.
Thank you very much, Michael. I think that was wonderful. As a data practitioner, I thoroughly enjoyed that session. We ran a poll just before Michael started, and it was interesting to see what the guys were saying on that poll. We're asking them if they believe that 4IR is relevant to Africa, and most people did say yes, they do believe that is correct. And some people who didn't know, I'm sure you now know, and you can answer that question affirmatively at this stage.